am really, really excited about this next portion. I've got two individuals that I'm sure need no introduction, but I am going to have them pop on now and introduce themselves. I have Tim Krupp and Mark Hirschi. I'll give you guys an opportunity for those of you who don't know Mark and Tim. How about we start with you, Mark?
All right, everybody. For those that don't know me, my name is Mark Hirschi. I'm the owner of Salmons Moving and Storage and also Ellis Moving and Storage, located in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, and also the host of the Movified podcast and Movified Nation. Well, the biggest win that we had obviously was the acquisition of Ellis Moving and Storage, and then taking a company that had no CRM, had limited services to new heights, integrating obviously smart moving, QuickBooks, updating dispatch processes, new sales structure, while maintaining like really strong culture within the company.
Congratulations. That's a
Thank
big
you.
win. And we also got Tim Krupp with us. Hey, Tim. So, same thing there. Introduce yourself.
Hey, yeah, my moving company is Krupp Moving and Storage. We're located in Ohio. I think our biggest win this year was we opened up a branch in the Cleveland market, and it's just really taken off. Like it's very, I mean, from the day that we opened there, it's been just slammed busy. So it's been a really good addition to our branches.
It's very exciting. Very, very exciting. So, I want to dig a little bit. We're going to start a little high level. Let's talk 2026. But I want to know what is your top business priority? Like, what's your North Star as y'all are going into 2026?
Sure. So I would say like the thing that we're most focused on at our companies is just our COGS. So like really focused on gross profit. We've put a lot of things into place just to be able to constantly measure that on shorter time frames. So because for a long time it's like you get your P&L every month and you look at it and then you try and make but really having like live data and dashboards that are able to tell you kind of like as you're going what levers that we need to pull to make sure that those things are always in check. So I think that's really kind of like the hot button in the topic of discussion more than anything going into next year. It gets harder and harder the bigger your company gets. You're losing a quarter point here and a quarter point there, when you're spread out over, 5 locations, it becomes easier. So it needs managed.
Yeah,
What
I
about
almost,
you,
I
Mark?
almost could, I almost could echo off of Tim because I mean, at the end of the day, when you're looking at such a growth and your company's getting bigger and bigger, the end goal is always what your cost of goods are. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if your revenue is 10, 20, 30 million or even like a million. It's really just going to matter what your bottom line is. So, my 2026 with our management team, we've been heavily just kind of going on what's our inventory look like? How are we, what's our spending costs? What can we cut out? What can we not cut out? What needs to be heavily improved? So, sustainability, right? System driven scaling is going to be key because we all like growth, but it doesn't matter how big you are if you're not making any money at the end of the day. So, heavily pushing that on the salmon side of things, and then not trying to sacrifice our culture and customer experience at the same time. So,
That's a delicate balance,
oh,
right?
for sure.
So, and I think those are great North Stars, right? So it's this is how you're trying to define success, but like what are some of those core levers, right? Like what are the dominoes that need to tip to get to where you're defining success? And how are you setting those goals for your team?
Yeah, so that like management is incentivized based on gross profit, right? And the labor cost is just a huge one. And where you typically are going to get into trouble is the busy season if you haven't done a good job hiring up, right? So all of a sudden now you're slammed, you're busy, you need 25% more guys than what you actually have, so you're paying, tons of overtime. And then also runs into non-billable hours as well because you're cleaning up stuff that is, you're not able to bill for and those types of things. So like labor is one of the biggest ones.
Got it. Got it. And that's something you'd recommend they start doing now before we hit into the busy seasons. You've
100%. Yeah,
got, yeah.
100%. Once the busy season starts, it's hard to change a lot. You get into these issues where your labor is out of controls because you didn't start hiring in February, right? You
Mhm.
didn't you didn't set goals take a look at like, okay, this is going to be my biggest month is going to be like, say, July of this year, and I'm going to need 35 guys or whatever, your number of guys is for this location. And in January and February, you've got like maybe 16, right? So you've got to hire over 50% of your workforce. And it's a balancing act to be able to start hiring in February because it's like you don't have quite enough work, but you're bringing in new guys, and like so that's one of the trickiest balances. But if you can set yourself up and know where you've got to be for peak season, how many guys, and you can actually achieve that, your profitability is going to be much, much better.
And are you working off of a timeline there, right? Of like when you need to hire, there's training and onboarding, there's
Yeah.
what kind of time frame do you say they need a buffer zone in, like to make sure that you're bringing that team together and that they're organized and they're trained and they're ready to go?
Yeah, so for mo most of my like consulting clients, we're starting hiring campaigns like really mid-February. And then we figure out based on their goals and where they've got to peak out at, really like how many people per week. It
Mhm.
ends up being like 1.5 people per week or 1.25 people for because you have to account for people who are just going to churn and they're not going to, you're going to have to hire more than what you think you need because not everybody's going to work out. But we break it up incrementally so we know how many hires per week that we need to make to be able to actually hit that goal.
This is gold, Tim. Yeah, and he said February. This is just right around the corner. What about you, Mark? What are some of those core levers that you're planning to pull to hit your goals this year? Where are you prepping right now?
Well, in the sales team, you're always supposed to have the sign that says ABC, right? Always be closing.
Oh yeah. Oh
On your
yeah.
ops team, it should be ABH, always be hiring, right? Just like Tim
Yep.
said. I mean, you really just want to keep it going, but it has to balance out, right? So I like Tim's idea of really even scaling back into February and really hitting it hard because you can start hiring. You can hire 10 guys and then find out that only four work out. So you really want to get that pool going, and it's not going to matter what you do if you don't have a strong onboarding. So we're redefining our onboarding process. So many of us go, hey, here's 2 days of training and away you go. Here's a shirt, you're on the trucks. And that's usually it's a line for not to be successful when the summertime hits and your busy season hits. So we really try and, January and February is about tons of more outreach, not spending tons on advertisement, but really more building these partnerships on the sales side. And then on the hiring side, it's then, can I have somebody work in the warehouse for a couple hours to fill in that, because you're going to lose a lot of guys because they have bills to pay as well too, right? Guys and girls. So it's like a double whammy, right? You really want to trigger that. And that's where we're looking at our milestones, looking at last year's numbers. What do we hit for January, February, March? Are we on track to beat those numbers for 2026? And 2026 so far is going to look a much stronger year than we see right now in 2025. So, and a lot of the moving companies that I've talked to, a lot of the guys and gals that are on this webinar right now have said, November was such a huge successful month, and December was still panning out to be it too. Carry that out to the new year, right? Like you got to keep that momentum going. Do not let the weather drag you down.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been the momentum going into the new year. Like there's an energy, there's a buzz around it. I think we all see the news headlines on how just even the housing market changing, and so it's exciting to hear. I think this is a great timeline too. Is like looking at this early so that you're not rushed at it because when you're in the busy season, there's so many other things to focus on in the busy season that this stuff drops off. uh, Andrew Brown wanted to dive in a little bit more on hiring, and he asks, "How do you manage not over hiring and lack of work? So some employees you're during slow times. How are you handling that?"
If you can pull back and look at last year and see how many jobs you were putting out and how many movers you needed to facilitate this number, right? We did, let's just say, keep it easy. We did 100 moves this month. We needed, an average of, 20 to 30 guys on average per the week. Maybe I'm looking at hiring an extra, 5 to 10 guys, right? Because we're going to try and increase by 10 to 20%. That's how we would want to try and maximize not over hiring. At the same time too, it's so easy for your sales staff to contact a customer and says, hey, listen, we have you scheduled for 2 movers. Can we move you up to 3? And even at a discounted price. And then that third or fourth mover that you've hired has already done the onboarding, can typically go out and do the job, right? Or they're helping on the warehouse, or they're doing a couple errands, within your company. That's where you can at least try and keep the guys for the slow time. I don't know, Tim, like, what do you guys do at Krupp?
Yeah, so I like what you were saying about like moving 2-man jobs to 3-man jobs. We do that a lot. And one of the kind of like secrets to be able to do that well and get away with it often with customers, and we charge for it when we do it. It's not, it's rare that we would do it for free. Is, we charge the most for 2-man per man, right? And we charge a little less for 3. But the man hours between 2 men and 3 men are the same, right? In smart moving. So typically, if you're set up that way, you can switch from a 2-man to a 3-man, and it's going to cost about the same, right? So it might just be a hair more, but it's easy to sell to the customer. That, hey, we put 3 guys on, we're going to wrap up a half an hour, quicker, 45 minutes quicker, whatever. And it's about the same cost. Customers usually, yeah, that sounds great. So we do a lot of that. But
That
yes,
was a
I mean
great question.
it is always a balancing act. Trying to hire in February, for March, because you can get a nice little spike in March, especially in the Midwest, like where we're at. It is so like the seasonal is glaring here, right? So like you'll do less than, 50% of you'll do 50% of what you do in June and July. So it's glaring, and then you get a spike in March, and then every month, continues to grow for there. So it is always a balancing act. But during the slow season, it's, your best employees. We always prioritize making sure that those are the guys, they're consistent, they show up, they do good work, they got a great attitude, they're going to get hours. And some people are going to fall out the bottom. We always call it, like this is the refining time of the year where we're going to refine, and some guys that probably aren't the greatest will probably fall out the bottom, and we'll replace them with some better guys going forward. But yeah, it's a balancing act. It's tricky.
That's a great question. I want to talk about gains. We got to get the gains, but I'm not talking about just those gains. I'm talking about operational improvements, right? So those internal gains, the softer side of Sears, as I like to say. So what are those like in like efficiencies or like process challenges, things that you're focused on to really dive into and iron out in the business next year that you think are going to be like that common denominator of success for 2026? There's always a stumbling block, right? Like,
Well, we really hit that hard now in 2025, right?
yeah.
Instead of, so that we had a good success rate or a good plan for success in 2026. So, for an example, when I took over for Ellis, we looked at who was working in the office, right? And there was, you had someone that was doing some admin work part time, you had someone that was doing operations, and you start looking at how is that being efficient? How are they being efficient with their time? And it made more logical sense to go, no, we can actually outsource the admin side at a much cheaper and lower rate, utilizing technology, utilizing third-party accounting services. And we looked at the operational side of things and said makes more sense to have someone more local. Maybe we can scale back, put someone into more part-time, based on where the revenue growth was when we took over. You look at on the salmon side of things, it's just like Tim was saying, implementing more technology, the use of having virtual assistants, the use of having AI receptionists, can pull back and go, no, actually, you know what? We actually could avoid having 2 hires in the office doing inbound sales when I have an AI assistant or receptionist answering a lot of those questions and then funneling it to the right people, or having a virtual assistant, be able to answer and provide some of that information. And that huge savings, when you look at the difference of cost savings, can save you $50,000, $60,000 at the end of the year. So, and that's just giving you more profit at the end of the year and better cash flow. So those little fine tuning moments, like Tim said, as you get bigger, that 1%, 2% difference can be $100,000, $200,000 compared to, the extra $5,000 or $10,000 you're saving.
Very smart. So I like how you're positioning this in, your operational strategy and your technology strategy and your resourcing strategy. Like you got this group together and you're looking at this as like how is this trading off on my profitability? And you're being really smart about where you're looking to invest, whether it's process, people, or technology. But I really like the way that you framed that. And I love that you mentioned, leaning in on tech and leaning on some of those other resources. Like I was going to ask you guys, what are some of those things you're looking at using to shape 2026? I know you mentioned VAs. I know you mentioned AI. Tim, I'd love to hear, are some of those things, reality for your business, as far as building out like that tech resourcing strategy that you have?
Yeah, so some things that we're working on implementing right now would be like a call bridge. So basically, like a lead comes in, the phone's like already ringing, right? So because a lot of times wasted between lead comes in and then all the reps are kind of like, ah, when I finish what I'm doing right here, then I'm going to get to that lead, right? And even if it's only like 3 minutes, like what if we could get that down to like 15 seconds? What kind
Mhm.
of improvement is that going to be if we can get that down to 15 seconds, right? So that's one. And then also like voicemail drops, but I'm not talking about like advertising. I'm talking about pre-canned voicemails, right? So our reps spend so much time leaving voicemails for, customers all the time when we're doing like, lead mining and stuff like that. You just press a button and it drops and then they hang up, right? So just like little efficiencies, there. So those are just two of the things are top of mind we're working on.
I love that. It's
Speed
so
to lead,
interesting.
Tim. Speed to lead, right?
Oh,
Yeah, speed to
yes.
lead.
I want to give some people a couple nuggets because you didn't ask me about technology,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I
Go
know we
for it.
talk a lot about like the AI voice agents and all of that. There's so many applications now that you can utilize, but I'm gonna hit two. One of the biggest things is that as a business owner, or if you have sales, that you really the biggest challenge that I find is personalized comments, posts, replies, because you constantly want to stay engaged, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, and there's an application, an AI assistant called EVY AI, right? So EVAI. It's a free application and it is an AI system that will help you create personalized comments, posts, replies, all for it. The other one that I heavily recommend if you are trying to get more business to business and more engagement to expand that type of division, it's called Humantic.ai. Humantic.ai. I'll put both in there to reach out and check it out. This is a LinkedIn tool that helps find out. So if I was trying to work together with someone like Tim, and I put in his profile, Humantic.ai will actually give me a full breakdown of who Tim is, how I should curate my email, how I should reach out to him in best way possible. Because there's so many times we reach out to someone on LinkedIn to try and generate business. We want to reach out and you get no reply. They've even like shown that like, hey, that person saw your post, could care less, moved on because you're getting funneled with it. This is going to be a much faster and easier approach to actually personalize these messages, and it's all done for you. Lastly, the other one, and I forget the name of it, and if someone wants to message me, I can give it to them. But the biggest issue right now, and we all do it, is on Instagram. Instagram, what happens? Someone punches in your business and you just have an automatic message that pops up, thank you so much. We're going to get back to you. And typically you've lost them. Well, there's an application now that you don't want to have them click out to a landing page. You want them to fill out their information and pull that information automatically into as a lead. So they don't even leave Instagram anymore. And that's going to be the next big thing for 2026 to avoid sending someone off to a landing page, but they're going to complete that form and fill everything out right away when they message you on Instagram. So three little nuggets for you guys, and hopefully you check it out because it's great tools, but yeah.
Those are great tech tools. And yeah, I agree. I think the way that people browse the internet today too, they're not leaving their social platforms, and the social platforms don't want them to leave. They're incentivizing people to stay. That's how they generate their ad revenue. And so being able to capture form fills right from platforms like, Instagram and like your Facebooks, that's absolutely key inside of that. So those are great tools. Um, I'd love to ask, we've got a lot of folks on the call that are doing the exact same thing right now and getting ready for the next year. What is one good piece of advice you'd give another moving company owner right now who's like going into 2026? Like, this is the thing they've got to do. I'll go ahead and start with you, Mark, and then we'll jump over to you, Tim.
Stay focused, right? Don't allow your mind to get sleepy. It happens, right? Right now, we think, hey, don't worry, I'm going to ramp up, and then February comes around, and then March comes around, and before you know it, you're stuck in May and June. Don't allow your brain and your work ethic to slow down, and you have to, like, this is the drive now to hit the next year running. So start, engaging. And I really think the biggest thing for anybody is focus on your community. There are so many businesses and untapped options and revenue streams that you think, I don't know what to do. There is. Start getting involved. And if you're not part of like a BNI chapter, if you're not part of your chamber, if you're not part of, a Rotary Club or anything, go in and visit them. It doesn't mean you have to join tomorrow. Start networking and building out that community so that everybody knows who you are, and work on your elevator pitch.
Excellent advice. Yeah, community is everything. What about you? What advice would you give to our 2026, Mark, or our planning for our movers that are out there?
Yeah, so I mean, if we're talking about planning, I think it's the simplest thing that everybody needs to do that so many people don't do is you actually need to have projections for next year set up by month, like what you think you're going to do based on historical data, plus whatever that increase that, your gut, or, if you've got good reason to believe that you're going to be a little higher, next year, by how much, increase all of that, get those projections, figure out how many trucks does that mean. How many movers does that mean to be not be paying, tons of overtime, unbillable hours, and also to not be leaving money on the table, right? You got to make hay while the sun is shining in our industry, and that means not saying no. And not saying no means being in a position to not have to say no because you planned well, right? So it really just comes to setting out those goals and then reverse engineering everything and having a roadmap to, and then being able to make sure to look at that you're on track as you go forward throughout the year.
Amazing. Amazing. I know that's all the time we have, guys. I could sit and talk to Tim and Mark for hours more, and I'm sure we're gonna have the opportunity to do that. This is an incredible way to wrap up our Best of Movers Award show. And again, thank you, Mark, Tim, for taking time out and sharing your insights with us and just being so generous with your knowledge. Thanks again for joining us, and congratulations to every single mover and individual who made this list this year. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in 2026.